If you're new here, I'm Sharon Feldman. I'm a registered psychotherapist for parents, and I help parents feel calmer, more confident, and more connected in their parenting. On this channel, we talk about child development, behavior, emotions, and the inner work of parenting. If you're a single mom or you're parenting without much support, kind of like I did, you've probably had moments where you're wondering why you're so exhausted all the time. And not just physically exhausted, but emotionally exhausted and mentally exhausted and I want to say spiritually exhausted, an exhaustion that is so deep inside that you can't even track where it is. And the truth is, when I hear this, when I think about this is what burnout is. And the truth about burnout is that it's not a sign that you're doing anything wrong. It's often predictable. It's a predictable outcome when you're just carrying responsibilities that were never meant to be carried by one person. You're one person. So today I want to talk about why burnout happens. I want to talk about what makes a difference or what makes it different for single moms, for single parents, and unsupported parents, and some really realistic ways that you can reduce that load even when there's nobody else stepping in to rescue you. So I want to start off by talking about what burnout actually is, and so that you can understand what we're talking about. It's not just about being tired. It's about mental exhaustion, and it's about the kind of exhaustion that comes from having to make decisions all day long, every single day. It's that feeling of being emotionally depleted. I had a client describe doing things that normally she would enjoy doing, and that she just does not feel refueled or replenished or positive while doing those things like taking a walk or exercising. It can feel emotionally depleted, like just feeling numb, feeling nothing. You can get to that point of just not feeling anything. You can have increased irritability. So some people who are naturally patient and even-tempered can start to feel irritable and edgy when the situation doesn't necessarily call for that. And for me, what really landed was this feeling that I was perpetually behind, that I was never caught up, that I was never going to catch up, that nobody was coming to show up to help, that everything was on me. And that's the talk that went on in my mind all the time. It's that burnout is about that experience, or it's the result of that experience where you're tracking things all the time. Like you're tracking appointments, you're tracking school forms or daycare forms or registrations. You're tracking the inventory of food in your home, grocery needs, meal prep ideas. You're tracking finances. You're tracking logistics, transport, timing. You're tracking how long it's going to take for things to happen. And then at the same time, somewhere on that list is the emotional need of your child, the emotional need of your children. And you're anticipating problems that haven't shown up yet, but you kind of know that those things are likely to show up, and so you're bracing. There's a lot of emotional bracing that happens that leads to and shows up in burnout. The hardest part of solo parenting isn't always what you're actually doing. It's carrying that responsibility inside your body and inside your mind and inside your nervous system all the time. This idea that you need to be thinking about this and you need to be on top of everything. And when there's no one else to share the load with, when there's no one you can pass the baton to, your nervous system never gets any kind of confirmation that somebody else has things covered. So I'm bringing this up because I'm seeing this with clients, and what's frustrating for me and what's frustrating for a lot of people is that the advice that's out there, if you go on social media, if you Google, how to handle being overwhelmed as a parent, that a lot of the advice says ask for help, go find your people, build a village, take a break, and practice self-care. That's what you're going to see, you're likely to see or read out there. And the reality is that for you, there is no village right now. And family might not be available or reliable. That was true for me. Co-parenting might be complicated. You might have a co-parent, an ex-partner, and it's complicated. You don't really have someone to talk to. You don't really have someone to plan with. That was my situation as well. Your finances might be tight. Your finances might be impossible or seem impossible. And there's no room for things that seem like self-care or taking breaks or vacations. And time is a constant thread and a threat. You're being imposed with time all the time. So the idea of taking time to do something else feels like, well, then I'm just making it worse for myself when I have to get the things done that are on this never-ending list of things to do. So if you've ever felt frustrated hearing this advice, I'm telling you that you're not alone. I'm telling you that it's really hard to get advice and receive solutions that assume that you have resources that you don't actually have. So then what do? What actually helps when support is truly limited? So the first thing that I talk about with parents is to reduce that mental load so that there's a constant loop of dialogue that's happening in your mind, and it's impacting your nervous system, and there's a grip being held on you. You're holding on and you're carrying this weight of emotion and thought. And so you need to offload that. One of the first things I recommend to clients who talk to me about this is that you need to write it all down. Some people call it a brain dump. Some people call it journaling. You need to actually get everything out of your head and onto paper. And I recommend actual paper and pen, because there's science to support the act of doing that versus typing it into your phone or even using a keyboard. It's just a pro tip of mine. It's what I recommend to people. The point of doing this is to just literally, I want you to visualize that you're holding a list and a loop of dialogue, and it's something that you can actually offload. That once you write it somewhere else, the science supports this, you are reducing the mental load that you're carrying just by getting everything out of your head and onto paper. Not this constant, I have too much to do, there's not enough hours in the day, I'm never going to get it done, when will I fit in doing this, I have to go here and then I have to go there and the store will be closed and how do I drive and the traffic. All of that is happening all the time. You need to offload all of that, because when all of that leaves your brain and lands on paper, your brain can actually stop holding them all at once, because that's the chaos inside of you. That's the weight. That's bringing on the exhaustion. It's not the actual list. It's not the actual things. It is having all of those thoughts happening all the time, all at once. Okay? So offload everything, write things. And I often tell parents, especially if you've never done this, go get a notebook. Go get a cheap notebook from a dollar store and just start writing everything that comes to mind, and don't ever read it. You don't have to read it. There's no point in reading it. The point is you're offloading. So it's not about reading it to see how it sounds and to, see what it is. Sometimes the act of writing it sorts things for you, and that's okay. That's a bonus. But the purpose of the writing is to have your brain stop holding all of these weights at once. Strategy number 2 is, once you've done that, you're going to feel a bit different, but let's just go on to the next thing. Now you need to separate the things that you actually have to do from the things that would be nice. So, must do versus would be nice. And to start to establish some very realistic standards for this time in your life. So, asking yourself questions about what actually needs attention today and what can wait. Because I hear parents talk about things like laundry and cleaning, and some of the things they mention really do fall into the category of doesn't have to happen today. Not in a day where I'm feeling depleted. Not on a day that I'm feeling that I can't do one more thing. And part of this conversation with yourself has to include figuring out what things am I doing because it feels important versus what things am I doing because I feel guilty or I will feel bad if I don't do them, because those are two different things. So strategy number 2 is about you sorting through what has to happen today. If there's literally no food to make lunches for kids, then obviously that has to happen. But what would just be nice? What do I need to do because I'll feel better if I do it, or I'll feel guilty if I don't do it? Those things need to be thought through. Okay, strategy number 3, and I see this crop up with parents I work with a lot. This is about measuring your success by the things that you complete. So many moms that I work with and talk to and have talked to over the years, especially the single moms, they get to the end of their day and they look back on what they didn't get done. I didn't finish the laundry. I didn't finish the dishes. I didn't do the dishes. I didn't tidy up the things. I didn't do. All the things they didn't do. They get to the end of the day, and that adds to the mental load. It adds to that running dialogue of chaos that you're carrying. It's a habit. That is a thought habit. And the beautiful good news story about thought habits is that they can be changed. Once we realize these are thoughts and these are habits of thinking, and once we see the habit of thinking, that every day at the end of the day, you think about all the things that didn't get done and the failure that shows up after that. Once you start to see that thought, you can start to change that thought. First, you have to see it. So I'm speaking to you in strategy 3, you, the mom, the parent, who is measuring your success by completion, by how many tasks you completed, the number of things that got done today. We are not measuring ourselves as parents by the number of things we did in a day. It's not what I did. It's how was I today? Were my children safe? Basic. Health and safety is the only line that I look at. Were my children safe? Were basic needs met? People were hydrated and fed, and people weren't alone all day. Did I show up as the best I could today? Now I know you're listening to this and you're saying, no, I never show up as the best I could. I could have been better. But actually, given everything, this mental load you're carrying, the weight and the burden of parenting on your own, without support, without a partner, given that that's the reality, you did show up as your best today. And if your best meant that you lay on the couch and watched YouTube alongside your kids, if that was how you showed up, you were still there. You still showed up. You were still present. So a better question would be, how did I show up in the best way possible today? Because that moves the measurement. Looking for ways that you were present, warm, and got the job done of hydrating and feeding people and being with them. Because I want to tell you that there are some seasons of parenting that are about maintenance and not optimization. And you have to recognize what season you're in and make sure that your goals match the season. Sometimes maintenance is is the best you have to offer, and that's okay. Strategy number 4 is kind of the contrary part to that self-care, vacation, take breaks. So what I say, I talk about micro practices, and I talk about the 1% change, because that's all we're looking for. We are always looking for that 1% change. So strategy 4 is about building micro recovery into your day. Because that waiting for a weekend away is going to mean you're waiting forever. So micro recovery, micro resets, that looks like maybe sitting outside for 5 minutes with a cup of tea. Or if it's me, it's sitting outside for 5 minutes with my eyes closed and my face in the sun. Just 5 minutes of that. It means drinking coffee before you look at your emails, and drinking coffee slowly and enjoying it. It means practicing sitting with that coffee and just noticing that you're sitting with the coffee. I'm going to talk about mindfulness in a moment because I'm edging on that, and I know what happens when you hear the word, but I'm going to go back to that. It means maybe stretching while your kids are playing, doing some stretches, doing some squats, doing a little bit of something, moving your body in a certain way. You could invite your child to do that with you. You could build in some of that. Stretching is important. I say it as if it's something I do. It's not. My best friend stretches, and I say, stretching never occurs to me. But when I had my young children, I absolutely learned to do some squats with them, to do some movement, move your body, stretching while they play. Listening to one song that you love uninterrupted. So these are things you're doing on purpose, and your nervous system benefits more from consistent micro moments of recovery than from occasional, grand breaks that don't happen. I want you to hear that. It's the same idea as hydration. I want you to think about this. It is not better to drink an entire gallon of water at once. What is better is to take sips of water throughout your day. And I want you to hear that, and I want you to think about it. that the value is higher, greater in taking smaller sips throughout the day. Small sips of water are just like micro resets. Micro. So what are the small things you can do that you can pay attention to? Now, I am going to talk about mindfulness because it is so important, and I'm so angry at what society and social media has done to this word. I want you to just think about, I need to come up with a better word, but I want you to think about mindfulness in this way. It is the practice of just paying attention to the thing that you're actually at, the thing that you're doing right now. If I took lotion and started to rub lotion on my hand, I could be thinking about a million things while I do that. And most of us do that. That's our thought habit, our thinking habit. That we rub lotion on and we're thinking about the laundry and how long it's going to take to get to daycare and the traffic because it's Thursday. And I'm doing something, but my mind is somewhere else. It's focused somewhere else. Mindfulness is the practice of taking your mind and focusing it on something that's actually happening now. If I'm rubbing lotion on my hand, I am focusing my mind on how that feels on all the senses. So how it smells, maybe the scent of my lotion, the texture of my lotion, the feeling of my skin. I am doing that. That is mindfulness. It is having my mind and my body in the same moment at the same time. It's hard, okay? It is a practice that takes time and discipline to develop. But just like doing push-ups requires the ability to do one push-up first, and then maybe two, and then maybe three, and you build over time, mindfulness is the same. You are taking your mind to the gym. Every time you refocus, I say that it's like if you've ever been to a show where there's somebody was on a stage and there's a person in the booth that's working the spotlight. That spotlight has to move on that person all the time. Keeping the spotlight of your mind on the thing you're doing while you're doing it is a practice, and it takes practice and it takes discipline, but it is so important because otherwise your mind is like an unsupervised toddler and it just runs amok all day long. My challenge to you is to try this if you have never tried it. To try, because you're going to feel the difference. And sometimes I talk about if you're a driver and you have the windshield wipers going in your car, do you watch the windshield wipers or do you look beyond the windshield wipers at the road? Because you're looking in the same direction and there's a choice of what you choose your mind to focus on. It would not be helpful to watch the wipers going while you drive your car. That's an unsupervised toddler. You get into accidents that way. Nobody does that. But the wipers are going. They're going right in front of your eyes. But you're not looking at them. You're driving the car, which means you're looking at all the things you're actually supposed to pay attention to. Your mind is trained to not pay attention to the wipers. Your habit is to look through the window and see the world and drive the car. You do that. You actually make that happen because you could just watch your wipers, and then you wouldn't see where you're going. You could put lotion on your hand and focus your spotlight on this, on the feeling, until it's absorbed. Now, I'm going to tell you that if you've never done this, when you do it, you will notice that you might only be able to do it for a couple of seconds, and then you're going to have a thought. And even if that thought is, this is weird or this is hard, that's still, you've broken it. You've broken your mindfulness, and that's exactly the point. It is, how long can I just focus on this feeling and this action without my thought going somewhere else? Okay. Strategy 5. Strategy 5 is about accepting support from in unconventional ways. So support doesn't always look like family. Support doesn't always look like close friends. It might be another parent at school or daycare. It might be befriending a neighbor, asking a neighbor for something when you've never asked them for anything before. It might be, putting your child in an after-school program so that you have a little bit more time, if that's available to you. It might be finding a therapist, right? It might be joining a community, either online or in person. So the goal isn't about this village. It's about feeling like you have a few reliable stepping stones that you can lean on. So if you're listening to this and you're thinking, I don't know if I'm experiencing burnout, these are the things that I want you to check about yourself. Are you in a state of constant overwhelm? Are you more irritable? Are you feeling emotionally flat? Are you having trouble feeling hopeful? And mostly, if you're having difficulty just functioning day to day. What I hope is that if you're listening to this and some of those signs feel like they are about you, I really do encourage you to reach out to a professional for support, a community member, a public health nurse, somebody that you can access for support, or a therapist if that's an option for you. If you're carrying heavy emotions, if your nervous system is in overdrive, if you feel that chronic stress, if you've been doing everything on your own, then support really does matter. It's not because you're failing. It's not. It's just because nobody was ever meant to carry this much alone. So the last tip and reminder is that burnout isn't proof that you're weak. It's not proof that you're doing anything wrong. It's just evidence that you're carrying more than one person was ever meant to carry. If you're watching this and you're carrying a lot on your own, I'd love to hear from you in the comments. I'd love to hear one thing you're carrying that most people don't see. Sometimes just simply naming that invisible load can remind us that we're not the only ones carrying it. And if this video was helpful, consider sharing it with another mom who might need the reminder that burnout isn't a personal failure, but it's just the result of carrying too much for too long. Take care. I'll see you in the next video.